right, to understand the Indian of Sferas HaOmer, right, that we start counting the day after Pesach, and we have to understand a few things. First of all, we're counting up. If it's a countdown to the giving of the Torah, like the Medrash tells us, that the Jews were very excited that Hashem, Moshe Rabbeinu promised them that Hashem would give them the Torah. Come 50 days later, so it should be a countdown. Why is it a count up? Number one. Number two, right? It's linked to this Korban HaOmer. Right? We count, relative to the Korban HaOmer, which was given on the first day of HaOmer Pesach. Right? What's its connection to the Omer, which is an offering made of barley? And I guess why count at all? What's the significance of counting? And the Sferas starts while we're still in Pesach and goes way beyond Pesach, but the first day of Pesach is not part of it. So to explain all this, so we have to refer back to ideas that we mentioned in our discourses on Pesach, that the world order that we're in, generally year-round, is called chametz. Right? The world order of regular, secular, profane time and space is chametz. Time and space is how the regular mortal mind makes order of things. Time and space is chametz. Give it its time, it takes up more space. And then time and space is very adulterated with evil. And on Pesach, it's a jump. Pesach is a lashon of dilug, says Rashi in Chumash. We jump to a higher order, a intellectual order. And that's why during the 7 days of Pesach, we're not living by the order of the regular physical realm, which the order of the regular physical realm, that, order that's more like a jungle, like the law of the jungle. In jungle also there's time and space, where the space also represents status, higher on the food chain, lower on the food chain, and first come, first serve. So it's time and space everywhere, be it in the law of the jungle, be it in the whole secular life, right? That's called chametz. And during the 7 days of Pesach, we're in a different order. That's why Seder night's called the Seder, as we explained. And the first time Pesach, we're catapulted to this other order. It's like Leil HaSeder, the night of the order, the night that we live by a different order, live by the order of pure thought, and that's the matzah. It's above time and space, and that's represent how the matzah is made very quickly, not at a leisurely pace. So that's how it's beyond time. It's beyond space, and in fact, it doesn't take up space. And that's why matzah, lasts a lot longer than bread. Bread rots quickly, and then matzah lasts, in a fantastically long time, relatively. It's because the philosophical background to it is, that bread, chametz, is full of evil, and as a function of how it's adulterated with evil is how it rots quickly. Matzah is like pure essence, pure essence, and that's why it lasts longer, right? So the 7 days of of Pesach, we're outside of the order of chametz, and we live by the order that's called matzah, right? But that's not the final destination. The final destination is to imprint this higher order that we live by during the 7 days of Pesach, this order that particularly renews itself on Seder night. We have to imprint that order on physicality. Like any form, form is imprinted on matter, right? So this higher form, which is the form of the Torah, the Seder of the Torah, has to be imprinted on the order of the physical realm, right? But, the physical realm has to be made ready and prepared to receive that order. Just like you have to melt down metal to shape it into a nice form, right? The metal has to be refined, right? And that's the way of any material. Material has to undergo refinement to be prepared to receive the form that you want to imprint upon it. So also, the physical realm has to undergo its refinement process in order to imprint on it the intellectual order of the Torah, that order that we live by, that we are in during Pesach. In order to imprint it on the order of the physical world has to undergo its refinement to do so. Right? Now, indeed, we find the Zohar says that the 7 weeks of Yom are parallel to the 7 days, and an impure woman counts before she is purified and ready to receive her husband again. Right? And that's also the 7 weeks of Yom is like that time of purification after the separation of impurity. First, there's a hefsek tahara, and that's Seder night. That's the catapult. That's the clean break from impurity. But then, even after breaking with impurity, that which has broken with impurity still has to undergo purification till it could receive its higher source, its higher power. So that's woman. She, after breaking with the impurity, the hefsek tahara, right? She has to count 7 clean days, and then she could receive her husband, be united with her husband. It's also 7 weeks of the Omer after breaking with chametz. Still the world that has broken with chametz still has to undergo purification to receive the Torah. And on Shavuos, it's called that the order of the Torah has been imprinted, right, on physicality, right? And that's the secret. On Shavuos, we eat chametz, the shtei lechem, which are also brought in the mikdash, are also of chametz, right? It's a word. The order of chametz has received the form of the Torah. So during Pesach, we're living by the form without matter. We're living in the world of matzah without chametz, right? And on Shavuos is when there's the merger between the order of the Torah and the order of the physical realm. That's why Sferas klum liyalma de'b'ina lechem, as we will yet explain. Right? And in the middle, there is preparing the physical realm to be able to receive the form of the Seder that we live by during the 7 days of Pesach, as we say that we are catapulted into that order on Seder night. So now we can understand Seder night is not part of the order. It's not part of the Sfira. I meant to say it's not part of the Sfira, right? Because Seder night is first to get us outside, get us out of the box. And then from the outside, once we're out of it, from the outside, we can fix the physical realm. It's like, Ein chavish matir satzo beisurim, that he who is in jail can't liberate himself. A person who's in jail can only be helped from someone who's on the outside. So the first day of Pesach is not part of the sphere. We have to be out of the physical order and from the outside, during the 7 days of Pesach, we could begin from the outside to fix the physical order and begin the process of making it befitting to receive the order of Torah, come Shavuos. Right? So that's why it's understood that the first day is not part of the Sira, because we need to first get out. We need our Yitziat Mitzrayim. We need to get out of the constraints. And then we begin the Sfira process that from being outside of the trouble, from being on top of the trouble, being higher than the trouble, we can fix the problems. Right? So now, the 49 days of the Omer, it's 49 is Gematria Leiv Tov, good heart. This refers to the Mishnah of us that Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai asked his students, name a very good positive attribute a person should attain. Right? So without going into what all the students said, the last one, Rabbi Elazar ben Aruch said, Leiv Tov, a good heart. And Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai says, Rani Divrei Elazar Ibnechem Shebechal Dvarav Divreichem, I prefer, I favor what Rabbi Elazar ben Aruch said over what you said, because in what he said is included everything you said. Having a good heart, to be called good-hearted, is to be called in general a good person, and so being good-hearted encompasses all positive traits. So each one of the other Tanoim said a particular good trait. Rabbi Elazar ben Aruch said, be good-hearted. Good-hearted is like being a center of orientation of being a good person. So therefore, if you have a good heart, you will surely have all other good attributes also. You will at least eventually reach them, because your general orientation is one of being good. So being good-hearted encompasses all. So the Bnei Yissaschar points out, Leiv Tov, right, the numerical value of Leiv Tov is 49. That in course of the 49 days of the Omer, we have disciplined ourselves to in a way that we have accomplished every positive good trait necessary to be a good person, right? And the rest of any other positive good trait is just details that are somehow included in the general good-heartedness that we have acquired during the days of the Omer. So now, to understand, why counting, we've explained why 49. We've explained why it starts during the days of Pesach, but the first day of Pesach is not part of it, right? But now to explain why counting, right? So matter, we've explained that the form that matter has, the form of time and space, right? That secular form is not the real form. The real form that matter should have, it should be imprinted with the order of Torah, right? So during the 7 days of Pesach, we're living in the order of Torah, but not living in the physical world, right? Until the 7th day of Pesach, that will explain, that's when the two tracks start meeting, right? But during the first 6 days of Pesach, let's say, we're living by the order of the Torah, and we're not living in the order of the physical world, but we're trying to fix the physical world from the outside. Something which we continue to do even after Pesach is over because we're bigger. We've transcended, we have our head, let's at least call it this way. We at least, even if our bodies go back because we start eating chametz again, our head is still above water, right? That's what Pesach, we leave Pesach at least with our heads above water, right? Literally, as we're going to explain. Right? So the way we fix the physical world is by counting. So like we said, the form of time and space is not the real form that reality should have. It should have the intellectual order, the intellectual form of the Torah. It should have that's the form reality should have. Right? So, the difference between, matter without form, which, the form that matter has is not its real form. So it's as if it's formless. It's as if it's formless. So matter without form as opposed to matter with form, right? Matter without form is not in unity because it's the form, it's the configuration of the form that pulls the matter together. The matter is united in that configuration. So lacking in shapelessness and formlessness, there is no unity. Right? But also shapelessness and formlessness, there is no intellectual design. Right? Any design is the product of thought. Right? It's the it's the product of the thought of the engineer, of the designer, and then that pattern in thought, which first is put on a blueprint, is then imprinted on the matter. And that's like, Pesach, the 7 days of Pesach is like the 7 days of the blueprint, right? Because we're not living in this world. We're not living in the world of chametz. We're living in the world of matzah. We're living by the higher order. All right, but we've started from the outside fixing the lower order. And the way you fix the lower order is by imprinting upon it the tzura of the intellect, right? The form of the intellect. And that's where numbers come in, right? And that's where counting comes in, right? Numbers are in the mind. Right? There is no physical entity called 3. Right? There's an object and there's an object and there's an object, and the mind grouped them together as 3. Right? So now that means it's a mental activity. Consider something 3. Right? It's not, in physical reality, everything is its own entity. It's in the mind that it's drawn together as a quantity. Right? And the truth is, we mentioned form, and form is what pulls matter together. The form is also a product of the mind. Any form could be, expressed mathematically by no coincidence, right? Whether the math, particularly what's called geometry, right? There's all forms could be expressed mathematically. Pi r squared, 2 pi r, right? And all these relationships that, there are certain XY formulas that will result in geometric shapes. As we know, anyone who studied geometry knows this, So all form is numbers originally, and then that form is imprinted on the matter, right? Or put it another way, numbers is the language of pure thought, and that's why in Lashon HaKodesh says the Vilna Gaon, right? Cheshbon, math, is also the same word as chashav, to think, right? So, counting the days of the Omer, that's imposing thought on matter, right? it's the mind is grouping things together, and this also in halacha there's this principle of davar shebaminyan eno batel. Something that's sold individually, by number, is not, if it's one of those things is non-kosher, gets mixed into others, right? So it's not even a node in 1,000, right? Davar shebaminyan eno bittul, right? Something that is it's sold by number, right? Because since by number it has its own number, that means you're machshav it. You attach thought to it. To attach thought to it is to attach importance to it. To attach importance to it, since it has the power of thought that makes it important, therefore it can't be a node, right? And that's what we're doing during the days of the HaOmer. Counting each day is to impose the power of thought on reality, but it's also causing the formation of a tzura, of a form. 1 day, 2 days. You know what it's like? It's like one brush stroke on a canvas, 2 brush strokes, 3 brush strokes. So initially, at the very beginning, it's not going to look like anything. When you reach a certain number of brush strokes, you're going to start seeing a form emerging. And that's what happens. The world, the physical realm without Torah is like matter without form. Form is the power of thought, right? And the power of thought is the power of numbers. And counting is to impose thought on matter and to group matter together in a thought pattern, right? Is to group matter together in a manner that it forms form. Right? That's the days of the HaOmer. That's what we're doing. And now just to give a hint to what we reach at Shavuos, numbers are quantities, but not really. Numbers cause matter to form into groups called quantities, but numbers themselves are infinite. There is no highest number. And between 2 numbers, there's infinite fractions, right? As, the famous Zeno's paradox. That, really numbers cause groupings called quantities, right? But numbers themselves are infinite. And theoretically, when we put the power of numbers into matter, we could connect matter to infinity, and that's what happens when we reach Shavuos, right? But this is our general introduction to Sferas HaOmer, and just let it be said that during the 6 days, actually it's 5 days. The first day of Pesach is not part of the HaOmer, right? Because that's just to be catapulted beyond this world, and only from the outside can we fix this world. We have to be bigger than it, right? And from the outside, the next 5 days, we're totally outside, so I'm fixing it from the outside, right? On the 7th day of Pesach, as we'll explain, we somewhat re-enter this world. It's still Pesach. It begins the re-entry, but we always keep our head above water. Keeping our head above water, so we're still outside of it. The head is above, counting. Putting the power of thought into the physical realm, which really is the process of imprinting the proper form of Torah on physicality, till comes Shavuos, where the form of Torah can be fully received as is meant to be.